All right. My name is Evan Strong. I usually do some kind of physical demonstration, so I will. I make content, videos like this, primarily around the lacing of our shoes, the tying of our shoes, and our clothing, the discrepancies left, right, front to back within those things, laces being laced incorrectly to press our natural arches down, laces being tied unevenly rather than evenly toward the inside, things in clothing that are just affecting our entire body. And I show little modifications within my free content on how to alter the things that you already wear very simply and very easy to just allow your body to work how it would work. And I'm going to be designing clothing when that comes, just clothing that is very minimal, that allows our bodies to just be centered and natural without any kind of modifications needed in order for things to stay centered. Okay, we'll do a little bit of I usually just like to do something like stand on one foot or whatever, just to show like my body's in a good position, natural hip flexor strength, natural balance, even rotations, right? And all of this is just because of what I've done within the clothing that I wear, because my body wasn't able to do this kind of stuff before. So, yes, tags within clothing all have to be removed, even stemming at the tongues of the shoes, just to even be able to possibly have a normal functioning body, because they're synthetic polyester, which is just oil that you're placing inside of your clothing. So what I say is prerequisites always within what I talk about is lacing your shoes with my technique, which is in my content. You can find it many places, just to allow for natural room for your arches, tying them evenly toward the inside to reinforce the center line, and removing all the tags from everything, including those shoes. Okay, very basic foundational must-dos just to even have your body have any kind of ability to possibly function normally within modern day clothing. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to talk about imbalances and focus mostly on our physical body, right? Because that's what my content's all about, is the body. What I'm going to mention first, before I get into it, is the reason I said it that way is because there's a lot of imbalances that people could talk about through spirituality, through their emotions, through anything within their life. But that all is really connected, because the only way we experience spirituality within our physical body is by having our physical body, right? It's kind of a separate thing, yet I just said they're all intertwined. But without having the body, you wouldn't experience any of those things through your body, right? Your emotions, you wouldn't have emotions in the way that human beings have emotions if they didn't have a physical body to experience the emotions in, right? So the body's important. It really is. Big time. Very, very important. And it's so easy, so simple. The body's so simple. I talk about all the time how everything just has its one function. And the finger only does this, right? I mean, it doesn't go backwards, it just goes this way, right? I mentioned things like the shoulders, the hips, the ankles, certain things within the body have multiple positions they work in, but there's only one way within those positions that they work, because we are all designed the same, universally in the image of our God, right? So, biblical stuff, right? I've made it very, very open that I am a disciple of Jesus Christ. And those things that are biblical become obvious when you start to watch my content about how I can speak for people on any part of the earth, because we're all universally designed within our slight differences, right? Okay, that's how I can give advice here, and it can apply to you over in any continent or country on the face of our planet, okay? So, there's a lot of ways you could talk about imbalances. That's why I mentioned spirituality, emotional, mental, right? But as I've talked about before, anything that's out of balance within your actual physical body can potentially, and in a lot of ways, amplifies whatever else you're going through. So if you're going through emotional stuff, if you're in kind of a hard situation, maybe around things or people that you maybe ideally wouldn't be, at least to our own ideas, right? A lot of times we're placed in places to teach us something. Even if it's like especially hard, something we never would have wanted to do. Later we can look back and see what we needed to get from it, right? But physical imbalances, I keep doing this, and I've talked about before, when I do this, it's not only for a demonstration. There's a center, and when you can move and work and you have rotations, there's a center, right? I mean, there's a center regardless, but that's what I mean is once you get to it, then you work out of your center line, right? So yeah, I do this a lot, not only to show like internal rotation or flexibility or whatever. I mentioned I don't stretch. I don't believe that anybody should ever have to stretch unless something has happened, like an injury. But anyway, just this is a balance, right? I mean, this is the center. It's just the natural thing that your arms will do. They'll meet at the center, okay? So when we're out of balance physically, that does a lot to other parts of our body, or other parts of our life. People will eat a lot of food a lot of the time and just feel like they're still so hungry. Just keep pounding food, right? This might be kind of like a lighthearted, I mean, ideally everything I post is lighthearted, but I mean like kind of almost like a silly kind of video in a sense. Speaking truth, but just like my countenance through it, because it's I think what's happening is joy is coming out of the simplicity of all of this and how simple to fix for most things, or at least the extent of the amplification that's happening because of our physical body being out of balance when certain things come up. You know what I mean? So yes, because if your pelvis is in, I don't really have to wait, you probably hear me, but I'm waiting for the bell. When your pelvis is in a constant anteriorly rotated position, in other words, if your pelvis is pointing like down in the front, as if having things in your front pockets, right? Pulling your hips down in the front, having a belt through your rear belt loop, pulling your hips up in the back, it's the same position. The front of your hips should never be down in just like a normal standing or moving position. I mean, that's just the position they should be able to get into. But when you stand, you should be tucked posteriorly, right? That allows for your legs to open into internal rotation. So I'm gonna do a little demonstration. We'll get a little bit visual with this, right? So when I'm standing, I always talk about ideally the front waistband of your pants is at least level with the back, if not a little bit higher in the front, to allow internal rotation, just because you will never, no matter how much strength you have, you will never fight your waistband. If it's down in the front, you will never get to a posterior position. You will never, especially because there's so much common elastic. It's very common nowadays for waistbands to be elastic, right? My undergarments have elastic right now, and if the front were lower, it would be squeezing me in this position. There's no way I could ever possibly fight that, no matter how much strength I went to the gym to get, right? And I've mentioned so often, working out is not necessary for the sake of just exercising or working out. Neither is exercising for the sake of exercising, right? It's a body's positioning, just a natural functioning positioning, okay? So, true, bold claims, and I've gone into them very great depth. It's just the truth, okay? So, because I wasn't like this before, and all I've done is the clothing, and release muscles that had been chronically stuck from the clothing's patternings for years, okay? Scar tissue within the body. That, I mean, you just have to. If you get scar tissue, in order for it to be malleable again, you have to physically release it, right? So, yeah, I mean, you do. And that's what I've done. So, I've done no exercises. Past 6 months, at least, at the time of this video, September 3rd, 2024, at least for the past 6 months, I have done 0 exercises for the sake of exercise. I go on walks to see the river trail and to pray and stuff, but as far as trying to exercise, no. And my body got to this point just because it's a natural position. Okay, so if you're wearing like a belt and there's weight in the front, if you have things in your pockets and there's weight there, look at my knees, right? Internal rotation, which is a posterior tuck of the hips, an opening of them, and then the femurs rotate slightly inward, down your whole legs, your toes slightly inward, you're on the outsides of your feet, right? A natural internal rotation, requires a posterior tuck of the pelvis. If you have things constantly on the front that are weighted, you will be in chronic external rotation and your knees will be collapsed in, your arches will be collapsed, all that, okay? That's just the waistline of your pants. So the point that I'm making is, if something like that, just one thing, just the waistline of your pants, throughout all the clothing you wear, I always talk about shoelaces, and then you've got anything you put up here, you've got layers of things, especially if it's cold, all the clothing you could possibly put on your body, and then if, you know, you're wearing things underneath, undershirts, or, you know, whatever else it may be, anything, all that could be affecting your body in its own little ways. And so just the waistline alone, tilting your pelvis into an anterior position, but like constantly, chronically, your core then is completely deactivated, right? The waistline's the big one. That's the big thing. Your pelvis, which is just this, it's a big, I mean, your pelvis is like this whole area, right? That area of your body is the center of everything. It's your hip hinge, right? From the top or from the bottom. It's where you hinge at. So if that's out of balance, there goes your internal rotation of your legs, there goes your arches, there goes your natural internal rotation of your shoulders, your head position, your neck position, your back, everything, just from that one thing, just from your waistline being lower in the front than in the back, right? You're standing like this and your feet are out and you're not natural and active. This is the way your body works, universally designed, unless you've got your own situation which you know about, that's actually something that happened or that's real, not that a doctor told you have something. No. Doctors are saying stuff left and right. I'm gonna be clear with that. I've also had 6 heart surgeries, and so I mention that only because I know it from both ends, right? There's certain things that are great that doctors do, and then other times they're just trying to, right, make some money. Really, truthfully. So, anyway, yeah, the waistline's the big one. If your pant waistline is down in the front at all, you will never get into natural internal rotation and posterior pelvis. I wouldn't either, right? I couldn't. You cannot fight something around your waist constantly. I mean, you can do it for like a few seconds and you're gonna get sore. And we shouldn't ever get sore necessarily either, right? Just because it's a position your body doesn't want to work in. You don't want to stand with your pelvis tilted anteriorly. Your feet are like this. You want to be here. And you will naturally. That's the point, right? So, anyway, if your pelvis is out of position, your entire body is going to feel like something's off, because it is. Not only is something off, but there's an elastic band squishing you into that position. So, when your body is imbalanced, it feels like it needs something, right? And this goes, I mean, in other areas of life too, if we get something happen to us and it's like an imbalance, like all of a sudden things feel off, we feel like we need something in the sense of like a coping mechanism. That's what your body's kind of doing. Same thing, right? It's like, oh my goodness, something's wrong. What do I need? What's going on? And so you start to think, oh gosh, something's weird. I must be hungry. So then you'll just go pound food. Eating a bunch of food, hoping that your body will feel better. Here's the catch, okay? Yeah, it's not going to help. That there's more to say for another video, a whole thing by itself. The point is, it's not going to help you. You're going to eat all that food, and afterward, you're not going to feel better, because your body's still in a bad position because of your clothing that you're wearing, right? It's a plane. So, when we get imbalanced physically, that's when things happen in our lives that we don't know why we did them. That's when we feel like we need stuff so much when we don't. Okay, so I don't eat very much. I'm also vegetarian. That's different. I mean, eating meat is its entirely own thing. I mean, meat is an animal, right? And that's an entirely separate thing. I'm not trying to say you should be doing here or there, but just the way that the body processes meat is, unique because it's meat, right? It's an actual living, breathing, like, animal rather than what the animal ate also, right? If you were to be vegetarian, I guess. Like, you don't even need to know that. I don't even need to know that just to know that, yes, I mean, having your body process actual, like, flesh is different than having it process stuff that grows out of the earth, right? That's really all I gotta say on that to have this understanding, because yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to push anything on anybody in any kind of way or say one thing's right or whatever. I'm not even trying to start a conversation with that. But yeah, being vegetarian really has helped my body also, because it's just so much easier to eat. I've talked about before how people just don't even get close to chewing their food thoroughly, at least here in the United States of America. This is where I can speak for, because it's where I live. People don't even get anywhere near chewing their food actually thoroughly to where they're actually getting the nutrients from it, because your stomach only does so much, right? The food needs to go into there broken down so that the nutrients can be extracted from it. Otherwise, a lot of it just gets passed through you, and you're losing a lot of those nutrients that you were intentionally eating to absorb into your body. So that's the other thing is, yeah, I mean, a lot of times the reason people can't chew thoroughly, let's say you had enough time, right? That's something people just don't take time to eat. And it takes quite a long time to chew thoroughly. I've just already discussed this, is why I'm kind of like feeling out what to say on this part, because if your body's out of alignment, right, stemming at the shoes, let's just say you're tying your shoes the same direction, which is imbalanced. Now your jaw, which stabilizes your entire body, is not meshing cleanly, and so chewing your food thoroughly is just going to be difficult in that position anyway. Again, out of experience. So, you might think that you're chewing kind of thoroughly, but if your teeth aren't actually meshing together, then there's gaps in there anyway, and we just lose touch of what it means to actually fully chew. So if you're chewing food just slightly, not all the way, and then swallowing it, you're probably swallowing quite a lot of air with it. Oh, it says 20% battery. I didn't know if it just stopped filming, like storage full, but no, 20% battery. Because if you're burping air, you had to get air in to you through your mouth. If it's coming out, it had to have come in, right? And you shouldn't swallow air. You know, you have two separate areas, right? Your respiratory system has its own pathway from your mouth, and your digestive system. And food should go in one with water, and the other one should just be air. If you have air in your digestive system, it's not going to work proper, and you're gonna feel it. So the things will kind of play off each other, right? So your body's physically out of balance because of your shoes being tied unevenly. Okay, so now your jaw's a little bit out of balance, and so you're not chewing your food thorough. So now you have bloating, but with your bloating, you have a waistline that's pulling you like this, a waistband on your pants. And so now you still feel out of balance, yet what you thought you needed was food, and that didn't help. Again, this is a lot of experience kind of stuff. So yeah, because we want to feel soothed as humans. We want to feel like when things are going wrong, there's going to be hopefully some kind of time when they're not so much going wrong anymore, right? And a lot of times when we're trying to do things that we think might help or feel like our bodies are telling us they need, we're not actually needing those things. Our body's kind of screaming, saying, hey, I'm just in a bad position, and intellectually or whatever, we're like, what's wrong? Let's eat some food. So a lot of times people eat so much food, and it doesn't actually need to happen, right? The amount of food that the body actually needs, everyone's individual. Everyone's got their own, like, you know, their own metabolism, their own digestive system, their own whatever, body fat, body mass index, you know, muscle mass, height and weight and size, and everybody's individual, and that's how it should be. But still, universally, even speaking for myself, really speaking from myself, we don't need anywhere near the amount of food that we eat. But a lot of times it's like we don't know what else to try, right? My body doesn't quite feel right, we say it sometimes, you know? And so you think, oh, well, the basics, sleep, food, water. But a lot of times you'll eat, and I already described that, you'll drink water, same thing. If you swallow air with your water, it can't be absorbed into your body quite well. You also need to have your food and water sit in your mouth to mix with your saliva, and it should be similar to your body temperature, so your body doesn't try to reject it once it's in there, and then it can actually fully take advantage of what you've ingested. So, yeah, I mean, see, yeah. But what I was saying is, you know, sometimes we feel like we need sleep. Sometimes we feel like sleep could help when our bodies are imbalanced. But if you go sleep and you're wearing clothing with tags in the back, and now you're sleeping in a position like this, in a state of external rotation, anterior tilt of the pelvis, collapsed arches, even though you're laying down, I mean, still, it's just your femurs rotating externally, and you're, right? So, now the sleep doesn't help because you're sleeping in clothing that is causing your body to be in bad positions. So, we do a lot of things as human beings, and now there's doctors coming up with all these things that they're claiming to be fixes that they know aren't actually doing anything. Medications and therapies to just reoccur and keep coming back to, you know, and people don't actually get much benefit from those things, if any at all, and they just keep doing it hopeful that it'll do something. Where I sit is directly on the body. What is this? What's actually touching the body at all times? It's the clothing, okay? Because I used to eat quite a lot of food. And now, not only did I eat a lot of food, but if I didn't eat, I would feel like I need it. Like I'd be craving food, and I'd feel like I was going to die when I had like more body mass than I do now, whether it's muscle or fat or anything. It doesn't, because that doesn't matter necessarily. The point is like there to then be like resources, right? The body can eat muscle essentially, right? Use muscle as fuel, and then you lose weight, or it can use fat as fuel that's already within itself. But now I'm just a lot more slender than at those times, right? I'm 6'2", and it may not look like it. I've said that before because I'm very slender, but I eat quite a lot less food, like a lot. That's kind of also why I mentioned being vegetarian, because your body just operates different if it's never having to digest flesh, just because it's different, right? I'm not saying here or there, I'm not even trying to, like I said, not trying to start anything about even a conversation, but I mean, that is just true. Eating the flesh of an animal versus just things that come out of the ground, it is just different. Your body will take that in differently, right? So even just the amount of chewing, right? You can tell just by that how long it takes to chew meat. If you know what it means to thoroughly chew, you try to chew a piece of meat, regardless of what animal it's from, and then you try to chew a plant, it just takes so long to actually thoroughly chew meat. So just that alone, you can tell there's just a difference in the way that the body reacts to those things coming into it, right? So, we don't need as much food as we are eating, but we feel like we do because what else do we try, kind of a thing, right? If we feel imbalanced, food, sleep, water, I mean, those are basically the things, like the basics. And if those don't work, then a lot of people go to doctors. I've had my fair share of doctors telling me I need this and need that. I didn't need those things. It was much more simple than that. So, yeah, we need to have a center line. And the reason I'm talking about this is not just to discuss that, but to say how easy it is. It's our clothing, right? Allow your clothing to sit at the natural hinge points, right? And wear natural materials that are from the earth. Same thing, if you're wearing oil, which is all polyester is, your body's going to be like trying to get away from it, but it's all around you. Let's say like in the case of a shirt made of polyester. So you're going to feel imbalanced. If you have the exact amount of food that your body is requiring at that time, and sleep and hydration and whatever it is, if you're wearing something that is oil, right? I didn't know until very recent, right? I mean, until I started on this whole understanding of all this. And so it's, I mean, if you don't know, it's not like you should know better. No, it's that we as a society, as a human race, should know better, right? The manufacturers, I don't want to say somebody else should know better, because that sounds like, you know, but I just mean like, we got to stop poisoning our bodies. That's what we're doing. And then also within food, if you're eating anything that's man-made, it's man-made. How can we make food, right? There's just a lot of stuff that we're doing to our bodies, placing in it and on it, that no matter what, it's going to feel out of balance, because it is, right? If we're placing, I mean, polyester is toxic for the body. And if we're wearing a polyester clothing of any kind, I'm gonna say this, I don't need to, but I just want to be very transparent. My socks are a blend. They have polyester in them. So I'm doing something right now that I'm talking about. I'm just speaking truth on it. I'm not saying like, look, I'm perfect at this, do it how I do. I'm just speaking the truth about what these things do to us. That doesn't mean I'm doing everything perfectly, all right? I feel like that's good to mention for this. So anyway, yeah, because, you know, because, yeah, you can go to the gym and do all the workouts, and you can, you know, go on all the diets and do all the things or whatever, but if your body's positioning is just, like, I do this as if these are my hips, and they're just trying to be in a neutral, you know, like, posteriorly rotated, like, position, but the waistband of my pants is not allowing it, then you're always going to feel imbalanced at that point, because you are literally being pulled physically out of balance, out of alignment at the center of your body, vertically at least, right? So yeah, so that's why it's so important. That's why I talk about clothing the way that I do. That's why it's going to work when I personally, design clothing, because I've mentioned, it's not about me having a brand, you know, it's going to be quite minimal, but you have to allow the body to do its thing. And I have a lot of understanding of the correlation between our clothing and the body, and just its natural position and function, right? So that's why it's going to be good for me specifically, you know, out of anyone who could want to make clothing. I'm going to make stuff that works, because I'm making stuff that I'm going to wear, and I modify everything so that my body can work. And so, yes, being imbalanced physically then travels into every aspect of what we do. And so it's the clothing. Yeah, I mean, I've said before, it's kind of the universal fix, right? If you have arthritis, again, it's probably that your shoulder seams are too wide and your shoulders are down. Now you're in external rotation and your hands don't work unless they can be in their neutral position, which allows both internal and external, right? So yeah, just being in balance rather than imbalanced, right, is the place we would naturally be without our clothing. So yes, yeah, without modern day designed clothing is what I mean. We need to wear clothing, we need to stay modest, but I'm going to design clothing that allows all that to happen, right, within the natural function of how we are universally designed to work. So, okay, yeah, so look out for that when it happens. Clothing by Evan Strong. It'll come. So yeah, I mean, and that's the most beautiful thing too, because if you decide to go to the gym, that's great. But if you go to the gym and doing every single exercise you do, you're coming from a place of an imbalance within the pelvis, within the shoulders and the neck, right? If there's a tag in the back, or if the seams don't fit your shoulders, or if the seams aren't sitting behind your shoulders to allow your shoulders to just raise and have mobility, if things aren't even left to right, well, then you go to the gym in an imbalanced position and force your body to work and exert in that position. So yes, being balanced physically affects every part of your life, okay? Positively, once you allow it to just happen. Do not work up to it or exercise to get there. Allow it to do it. Your body wants to do it on its own. You just gotta allow it. Okay, cool. All right, sweet, cool. All right, so, yes. Because everything is connected. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Yes. And what's really cool is a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about is doctrinal, right? In the gospel of Jesus Christ. I mean, there's a lot of even metaphoric, but also literal, the things that I talk about within the body. Because again, this is our vessel, right? We're made in the image of our God, and this is all we got to have a human life. This is our human life, right? So, in this form, on the earth at this time. So let's just allow it to do its thing without restricting it. All right, cool. That's what I'm gonna say. Yeah, just there's a natural balance, right? It's a natural balance in all things. I think that's kind of what I was sort of meaning when I was talking about the gospel. Like, you know, there's opposition, but even if you look at that from a physical body sense, opposition meaning right versus left, there's opposites which allow there to be a center, right? So yeah, there's a lot of metaphorical stuff too within having a physical, literal center line, right? So, okay, cool. All right, yeah, look out for clothing to come. It will, 100% materials, pretty minimal, just to allow the body to work, right? Timeless kind of clothing. So, cool. All right, yeah, stuff that you could wear for like 10 years, right? No guarantees on how it lasts, right? Just because, I mean, no guarantees, but stuff that you could wear for like 10 years, you know what I mean? Just clothing that works for you, so you don't have to work like around it, right? That's the goal. That's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna make clothing, okay? So it's gonna be awesome. Change people's lives, allow people to live longer, extended lives, and more full lives within the time that they have, and just allow them to move and work and do things without having to stretch or get sore, right? Easy. Seriously, easy. I'm the guinea pig. I'm the living proof. That's why I'm doing this. Okay. Thank you.